Welcome to Significance Breeds Success. Today, I have a rock star here who you guys are going to absolutely love, Chris Van Vliet. I was on your podcast last week. Thanks for coming on, brother. Tell me isn't this crazy, this COVID? We get to film more podcasts, spend more time with people we want. Are you enjoying this?
It's a funny time, right? And I think what's so interesting about this is it's something that's never happened before in certainly the history of our lives. But what's interesting is we're all in this thing together, right? This isn't something that's just affecting one country or one part of a country. As a world, we're all in this together. So yeah, you were on my podcast last week. Thank you so much for coming on. I love being able to do interviews in person. So it's been really interesting to have to pivot as, we're not really able to see people in person, so I've been having to pivot, had to buy some new equipment to make these virtual interviews happen.
Yeah. So you're from Canada, TV, radio personality. You're living in LA now, YouTuber, entrepreneur. You're living, and your girlfriend's not even living with you right now, right? Because you just moved to LA for a new gig and you guys are going back and forth. That I call a hustler. It takes a lot, right?
Yeah. But look, I just didn't want to continue living just like an average existence. And, the job I had was great. The jobs I've had are great, but I just wanted to do more. So I knew that in the line of work that I work in, TV and radio, with doing a little bit of acting as well, the place you have to be is Hollywood, California. So I figured there's no better time than now to do this. But this stems back to when I was in college. I remember being in my senior year of college, and I loved college, by the way. Loved college. And I was having so much fun with my friends, living in a house of 5 guys, doing whatever we wanted, basically, and deciding if we felt like going to class that day. And I had a day when I woke up, and I'm like, when I graduate at the end of this year, it's all over. You got to go to work for the rest of your life, for the next 40, 50 years of your life. And in that moment, I decided I wanted to, at bare minimum, have a job that I didn't hate. And that was really what got the ball rolling here is I wanted to just enjoy what I was doing every single day and not be one of those people who was oh, I got to go to work today, man.
It's so horrible if people...
I know there's people that live like that. It's unbelievable.
So I was behind this. I was getting ready for a fight at the San Jose HP Pavilion. My second pro fight after WWE, and I asked my coach. I'm about to go out into the cage, right? And I've already warmed up, stretched out, everything. And I look over and I go, Bob, why do I do this? And he's like, because you don't want to get a real job. I'm like, heck yeah.
That's it.
And I went on with my guy. I was like, no, I don't want a real job. It's interesting how people have this have to mentality of poor me, because they're not maybe willing to struggle. You struggle, you moved away from your girl so that you could chase your dream. Obviously you guys have a great relationship. But it's just interesting how people are willing to do what their true love is today.
Well, for me, it was, I've moved so much in my career, and it just became second nature that wherever the job was, I was just going to have to find a way to get there. So it was originally from Canada, like you said, but my first job was driving an hour each way, 60 miles each way for an internship that didn't pay, that eventually ended up turning into a job, but it was 60 miles each way, sometimes in the snow. Then I got a job in Vancouver, which was incredible, hosting a show for MTV2 Canada. But basically they offered me the job and I didn't think twice. I was like, oh yeah, that's 3,000 miles away. Cool. So when do you need me to start? And I didn't even think twice about it. So the moving thing's just been second nature for me. It's if that job is there, I'll go. So it was Toronto to Vancouver, back to Toronto, Cleveland to Miami, then Miami to Cincinnati, and now Los Angeles. So it's been everywhere, although I'd plan on staying in California for a while. There's really no reason to leave there.
So I love what you've done with Boys and Girls Club in Cleveland. You donated $10,000. And have you got to spend time with those kids out there?
Yeah. So when I worked in Cleveland, I worked for the CBS affiliate there, and we had a really tight relationship with the Boys and Girls Club. And from the first day that I went in there, seeing the work that they're doing for these kids, I mean, you know what the Boys and Girls Club does all across the country, but seeing what they did there and building up this confidence in these kids, giving them a place to build up their skills was amazing. So it all tied into, which this all ties into some ridiculous story, but I was selected by Cosmopolitan magazine as one of their bachelors. So they had one representative from each state. So there were 50 bachelors, all vying to be the Bachelor of the Year for Cosmopolitan magazine. Someone at my work nominated me. I had no idea this thing was happening. Next thing you know, I get a call from Cosmopolitan magazine basically being like, hey, you're in this thing. We need you to like go to a beach and like take some photos for us. So you can look online. There's the shirtless photos of me on the beach. But the great part about this is I said from day one, so the prize was $10,000. I said from day one, if I win, I'm going to donate all the money to the Boys and Girls Club, you know, an organization that as a TV station, as a person, we were working with just so much. And I can't believe it. I can't believe I actually won, but I did win. And then I went right to the Boys and Girls Club with the giant novelty check and I signed it over to them. And the look on those kids' faces, it was like, you know, it was like I was giving them $10 million. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this thing's happening. And the feeling that I felt being able to donate that was just so special.
Bro, your picture on the beach, I just looked it up. You're shredded beefcake, bro.
Yeah.
You guys got
I don't know if I did it right, but I definitely, I was like, I got to get as many abs as possible. So I cut down and got a whole bunch of abs. So sure, it worked out.
Absolutely love it, bro. So I'd love to connect you with Boys and Girls Club in LA County for sure. Mary Hewitt's their executive director. They have like 140,000 kids. But what's great is they have a network that's attached as one of their big partners. So, you know, you never know what kind of relationships you can build. It's great.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
okay
so
yeah, for sure.
I'll do that right after this. So I love this. Bass fishing. Bro, you're a champion bass fisher.
I don't know about a champion, but bass fishing has been another passion of mine. And look, not unlike you, I like dive head first into whatever it is that I'm passionate about. Like I don't go halfway in. I don't just dip a toe into it. I go all the way into whatever I'm passionate about. So at a young age, I started loving bass fishing, and our neighbors had a cottage that was not far from our house. So pretty much every weekend in the summer, we'd go up there, and there were no kids that were my age. And I'm a 4-year-old kid, and there's no one really around my age. So my parents were just like, let's put a life jacket on him, send him to the end of the dock with a fishing rod and a worm, and, you know, that'll keep him occupied for a little while. And I caught my first ever rock bass. And from that second, boom, I was hooked. And pun intended, yeah. I was hooked and all in on bass fishing. And it was all I wanted to do, like growing up. And my dad's not a huge bass fisherman, not even a huge fisherman at all. And I would basically beg him to take me bass fishing. And he would just kind of sit there while I would fish, often not catching anything. But I was just so in love with this. So at 14, I fished my first ever bass fishing tournament. And that was kind of it. I did a few tournaments every single year to the point where I was doing maybe a dozen or 15 tournaments every year. Sometimes fishing like professional tournaments where like the best in the world are doing this. I'm fishing as a pro-am. So picture like golf, but like I had the ability to like play in a foursome with a Tiger Woods and a Phil Mickelson. Like I was fishing in these tournaments with the best in the world. So yeah, that was that. And my tournament fishing partner and I decided we love fishing so much that we want to start a brand. So we started a bass fishing brand, which is called Woo Tungsten. Number one, because woo, as you know, is a very contagious thing to say, especially in the world of wrestling. But number two, when you catch a giant fish, you scream, woo, yeah. So it's Woo Tungsten. We've been around for 4 years, and we sell environmentally friendly fishing weights for bass fishing. They used to be made of lead, which are not good at all for the environment, not good at all for fish if they ingest them. Now they're made of tungsten, which is a denser metal, which is better for the environment. So everybody wins, including us who started the company.
I love that, bro. Where can they go to find that? That's not even on the internet. I can't find it on your.
Oh, really? It
On
should be
anything.
somewhere on my
.com.
Wikipedia page.
Yeah,
I'm sure someone put it there.
I'm looking right now, bro. What is it? Tell me. Go fast.
So it's wootungsten.com, WOO tungsten.com. You can also find us at Tackle Warehouse. You can find us at your local retailers if you have different outdoor retailers near you. Yeah, look for the green and black packaging.
So I love it. You interviewed me and we talked a lot about pro wrestling. And I find that for me, pro wrestling was a huge part of my life. It has been. It was a short part, but it was a big, big part. And you've been involved, in multiple different companies. Did you watch wrestling as a kid? Who's your favorite wrestler? Did you grow up? Was dad wrestling fan? Tell me a little bit about this.
So I grew up watching it, but like not really being a massive fan. So I'm a kid of the 80s and I would go to like grandma and grandpa's house and Saturday night it would just be on. Like, not that my grandpa was a huge fan. It would just be on TV because it was on TV. If there wasn't a hockey game or baseball game on, he put wrestling on. And I fell in love with the larger than life characters, Ultimate Warrior and oh my gosh, Macho Man, some of the silly characters like Repo Man, Coco Beware. But I wasn't like all that into it. I just thought it was a cool thing to watch. And then in the 90s, when it had the resurgence with the Attitude Era, I had a really good friend of mine who watched every single Monday night. And in the 90s, you talk to your best friend on the phone. Like, that's a thing that people used to do. They used to talk on telephones. And I knew that at Monday at 9:00 sharp, we had to get off the phone because Raw was starting. And then one week I'm like, all right, man, like I'll watch with you till the first commercial so we can continue our conversation here. And I was all in. And I was like, this thing's incredible. It's better than I ever remembered. And it was Austin McMahon was the big storyline at that time. And I loved it. And my parents hated it. My parents hated the fact that I loved wrestling. And I get it. Your kids, was like 15 years old. And wrestling at the time was, some very scantily clad women. There was a shaved head guy who was flipping off his boss. Like, I understand how a father could say, these aren't exactly the values I want my teenage son to be learning. So I did that trick that every kid does, where I had the last channel button. So I'd be watching wrestling. And then as soon as I heard my dad walking down the stairs, I'd hit the last button. The Blue Jays, they're winning 3-2 right now. Yeah. He eventually caught on very quickly. And there'd be some times when my dad would stand in front of the TV with his arms crossed and be like, "You're not watching this." And I'm like, "Come on, Dad, please, like, move out of the way. Like The Rock's doing something here." Eventually, it took a while, but my parents finally came around, but they were not fans at all, especially because I was a high school wrestler. And as you know, amateur wrestling and pro wrestling like really couldn't be further from each other in terms of the values, in terms of a lot of the moves that you do. And I think that my parents looked at this and went, you can stick with this high school wrestling thing, but we don't like the way that the pro wrestling is. We don't like the attitudes here.
Wow. Yeah, I think my parents did that a little bit too, definitely with the fighting. They looked at my mom and dad, were like, "No, you cannot fight." And I'm like, hold on a second. So you're telling me to go out and create a career and do what I love to do, and then you're telling me, but don't do this.
Right.
So it's interesting how much more that at least drove me to do it. Did that drive you to do it when they said, don't do that?
Well, isn't that funny? It's like this reverse psychology when you're a kid. Yeah, I think that I was like, well, why can't I watch this awesome thing? I also wasn't allowed to watch Married with Children and The Simpsons. So like, just, to put it all out there, Married with Children, The Simpsons, and wrestling were like completely banned in our household. But I will say that my parents were like insanely supportive of whatever it was that I wanted to do. And I had a love for broadcasting like early on. And I mean, that's a long shot, not unlike your fighting career, not unlike your WWE career. It's a long shot to say as a teenage kid, I'm going to be on TV when I grow up. I'm going to be a broadcaster. I'm going to be a news anchor. I'm going to be a TV host. But my parents were like, we believe that whatever it is that you say you're going to put your mind to, you will absolutely accomplish that. So my parents were like so supportive in that. When I was doing things like begging for an internship that made me drive 60, miles each way, my parents were just behind me the whole way going, we know you can do this thing and you will do it.